Hello and welcome to yet another interesting conversation with interesting people from software development. I'm Alex Bolboaca. I'm coming to you from the Mozaic Works studios, and my guest today is a software craftsman, technical coach, speaker, system thinker, symmathecist, and philosopher. I hope this conversation, you'll find this conversation very interesting because we have a lot to talk about regarding technical practices, but also technical leadership, architecture, many things. Welcome, Marco Consolaro.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
I like to ask the first question be related to how you started in software development. What drove you to get into software development?
We have to go back a few years for that first moment. I mentioned it in my book as well. It was when I was around 9 years old, and my older cousin brought home a brand new Commodore Plus 4 at that time. It was around 1985, and so it was the brand new toy for him, right? That time, video games, that kind of stuff was the new sparkling thing for kids. So, since my parents dropped me with my cousins so much time to play together, I couldn't help but be interested about that. The thing is that after a few months that my cousin started to learn to use it, it became evident that I was better than him, and I was like, can do like this, can do like that. So the year after, obviously, at my birthday, I went to my parents, and I was like, I want a computer as well, right? And so that's how they bought me the first Commodore 64, because the year after the technology evolved already. Okay? And after that, I started to learn not only how to load games, but I started to be interested in basic programming. I started to do the first programming, and even if I was young, I was 10 years old, I perceived the huge potential that could have. I was like, oh my God, with this thing, imagine if everybody can put something like this. We don't need paper anymore. It's so amazing. It's gonna take over the world for sure. And that's how it started. And then I went to uni, and I'm here.
So, what type of university did you do? It was something around engineering or math?
I kept programming more or less till when I was a teenager. And actually, the story is quite funny because in Italy at that time, when you are 13 years old, you have to decide you could go to work or you could go to high school. And I was so fed up with study and school at that time. I went to my dad. I was like, there's no way I go to school right now. I go to work and that's it. And so basically my dad, he did chemistry at school himself, right? When a time in Italy, not many people could even do high school. He was like, there's no way you are too gifted for study. There's no way you don't go to school. You can decide which school to do, but you have to go. And so I basically I negotiated the motorbike. So if you buy me the motorbike, then I go to school. And at that point, I was facing with choosing what school. I was like, oh my God, right? What can I study? Everything looked crap for me at that time. But then I was like, wait a second. Let's see if I find some school I can do some programming. At least it becomes less boring. And so I found the only school in my province that did programming. It was accountancy and computer science. I don't know what the two matters, but apparently at that time they think that it was correct. So I signed up for that in high school. And the thing is that in those years of high school, I matured quite quickly. And by the end, even before the end of high school, at a certain point, I went to my dad and I was like, you know what? I think after high school, I want to do university. My dad was like, what? Hey, 3 years before you didn't even want to do high school. And he was scared. He was like, oh my God, you don't want to go to do art school at university. So I was like, no, I want to do computer science. And so he was like, okay, that's good. And so he was really happy. And then I signed up for computer science, and it was a master course of computer science of the University of Venice.
All right. So I know that you've gotten into the technical practices, the XP technical practices, test-driven development, refactoring, pair programming. And one question I like to ask is, how does this transition go for you? Because for many people, they don't learn these things in university, and then at some point during their career, they pick it up. And it's usually a hard transition between the two. So it's always interesting to hear how you got into it.
Yes, it's very, very hard transition. But for me, it was everything new because when I decided to move away from Italy, in the beginning I started in Italy, and then on 2006, I was fed up with the working environment in Italy. And I decided to move. I was like, let's go somewhere and see if I can learn something more, if I can enjoy working a little bit more, right? And when I arrived here in UK, actually, I didn't just only enjoy more the professionality that they recognize in you when you join the place. They actually had a much more deep understanding about what we do and principles and things. So I was really, really curious to see these new methodologies, and I am really good to learn by doing. I'm not the one that really like to read books and learn the theory. I like to read books to understand, internalize more what I do when I practice. I like to start from practice. I've learned it in these new environments. I went in a job, Agile, and they hired me. I want to learn this stuff. But the first job wasn't a real Agile. It was dark Agile, or what they call Agile Scrum, ceremonies and things. But actually, technically, it was the same crap of other places. So at that point, I was like, I really like the idea of working in small batches. It seems to me that it was a little bit a charade, right? A lot of things, but then pragmatically, nothing changed. The quality is still crap, right? As far as I remember the first agile job, I don't say the company, but yeah, a big team, big structure, big agile. And so somebody came and said, oh, where's the test? And the people say, oh, there's no tests. Right? And so, well, there's no test. How is it possible? We're supposed to have tests. And so, okay, we need to retrofit the tests. And so, who wants to do that? And there were no volunteers in the group. So, yeah, at a certain point, I was like, well, if no one wants, I'll do it myself. So maybe I learn how to do it. So, well, yeah, I volunteer. If no one wants, I do it because it was considered a very bad job, right? I didn't even know that the code was so bad. That's why it was a bad job, right? And so yeah, I can volunteer, I can do it, but there is only one problem, right? I haven't written a test in my life, so how can I do that, right? And so somebody, oh, no worries. He went to pick up a book. I think it was the book unit test or something like that. He gave me the book. There you go. Now you can write the tests. So I I started to write the test, reading the book, and obviously you can imagine the quality of those tests. They were super crap. Right? I think they didn't even test anything. But for them, it was important to have something to show the management. So, yeah, they prized me so much. Instead, I felt so bad because I was like, no one is in a position to help me. And I feel I'm not doing it right, and they even are happy. Yeah, I was like, it doesn't make sense. But then, after that job, the architect that hired me moved to another company, and so he hired me in the company as well a few months later, right? It was like, and now you will learn how to do that properly. And then I sit with a real XP team, 85% of code coverage, and everything even over tested. Yeah, tested everywhere, every class. It was even more crazy than what is correct. And that's where I bang my head. That's where I have amazing teammates that pair with me and basically erased everything I've done the year before. And that's after infinite discussion with them, where I was, why this is incorrect. After a certain point, banging the head with them, at some point it clicked. And then when it clicked, I just started to work like them and learn the things. So in that job is where the change happened. I say that it was more the banging my head to understand a different way to work, right? The wishful programming where you write the code before you have the classes there. That's the thing that the big change in my mindset. But when I got that, when I start to learn to use the IDE, when I start to learn the benefit of doing like that, I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is how you do it correctly. This is programming. Why? I was like, yeah, throw away everything before and go in another way. So after the first barrier, and then everything went super fine.
So this is another very common obstacle that I notice people have is you realize that for yourself these techniques were very well, but then you want to share them with other people, and suddenly notice that majority of developers don't see the world as you do. How is that moment for you?
You mean for myself as a learner, or for myself as a coach when I try to explain to?
For yourself as a coach or trainer, or in
Well,
communities, when you say, yeah.
that's where psychology gets into play. Right? The problem when people has to learn something new is it's what Brandolini says, the illusion of knowledge. Uh, uh, the biggest enemy for ignorance is not, I don't remember the quote correct. However, it says that the problem is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. Because if you think you know, but really you don't know that you don't know, and you will never learn, right? So that's a little bit where everybody are in this. So if you go there and say, what you've done until now is incorrect. Look at this. They raise the defensive, like, hey, I'm a master. You can't say so, right? And so the way we do it is basically making them do it without telling them that we are doing it. So it's like, okay, let's mob together, right? So let's try to do in this way, right? Let's try this. Let's see what happens if that. Let's see what the ID does, right? And basically, you open a door. It's like let's see together a different way to do things. Let's try a new thing, right? And so they start to be interested. Oh, it's a new thing. It's like you don't make a big thing about it. You just put it among the lines, right? The exercise is about learning TDD, not about learning this way to program. And so by the hand of the exercise, they are like, wow, it's great like this. And so we work a few times in this way. And after that, a few lessons, we see that they just do it themselves like that. They don't go back, right? There is a friend of mine, Eldon Ferran de Paul, a great developer. I worked with him many times in the past. That says, "Hey, I have never seen anyone go back. Once they learn this way, no one's go back, right?" And so maybe giving a try is a good thing.
Yeah, and still, I get a lot of messages on Twitter saying things like, "Does anybody write tests all day for everything that for all the
Yeah,
code
well,
that you write?"
yes, but you know, it's like every technique. You need to learn it, and you need to learn it well, right? What the Karate Kid was, right? If you don't know karate, it's okay. If you know karate, it's okay. If you know karate, so and so, right? It's the same thing. So it's a technique that it's more difficult than what people think. It is more deep than what people think. And what I found is an asymmetry between what people think to know and the thing itself. And I've seen it many times doing interviews. Last year, I've done like 100 interviews for people that claim to know TDD. We were filtering people that claim to know or wanted to know or were about to learn it. Right? We filter people for that sector. And so one of my first questions when the people come there in the interview, I ask them to self-rate. I ask them from 1 to 5, how do you think you are in TDD? And few people actually say, oh, I'm 5 out of 5. You know, wow, right? It was this guy that said, I'm 5 out of 5. So I was like, wow, you will show me back style. And then he look at me, uh, what? Back style? Uh, back? What's that? Is it a name? Yes, it's the guy that invented it, right? And so you can, I let you understand, I let you guess how the interview goes. He was a master in something else, and there's nothing to do with TDD, right? But he claimed that he knew TDD. This is the problem, I think, that the technique is it has been a little bit commercialized, right? It's what Taiichi Ono said of Toyota: never codify the method. If you codify a method, you give it a name, you sell the name, but not the method itself, and then you sell something. The word means something that is way different than reality, right? And it's really hard because you have people say, "No, this is TDD," right? And it has an history behind, right? Yeah. If you don't know who Kent Beck is, I find it rare that you tell me what TDD is in reality, because that guy invented it. Some communication in between has to be lost.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of times how parts of the knowledge are superficial, and actually some of the things that we are talking about are much more complex than people realize. So when we talk about even Scrum, taking Scrum as a simple example, it's like, yeah, you do daily meeting and you do planning and you do a demo maybe, and maybe you do a retrospective because it gets boring after a while and you don't want to do
Yeah.
retrospectives anymore. And the daily, you don't like dailies too much, so maybe it's better to do them over some kind of tool. And, and so you end up with something completely diluted without understanding what's behind the practice. And it feels like it's the same with test-driven development. It feels like it's the same with things like rescuing legacy code. because often it looks as if uh, legacy code is something that everybody works with. So why would you need special technique for it? It's, you know, everybody works on existing code.
Yeah, Michael Father can answer, right? Yes, but I think it's like that with most of the things in the industry and in the world as well. Is the hype, right? The thing is that it's a little bit the pattern of commercially exploiting something. You take something that works, you make a big marketing thing on top of it, then you publish to the hordes, and as far as it sells, you don't care, right? And then the hordes dilute the message and make something that was great, something that becomes very aleatory. Who do it well say, oh wow, yes, it's good. Who do it bad say, it's crap, it doesn't work. Right? It started for a reason. Who invented for a reason. It became famous for a reason, right? And then if after becoming famous, it becomes like that. Perhaps it's not the method and the blame is not about who made it. Maybe we should blame the system that commercialize things, that over commercialize things, and that just want to make money out of everything, creating hypes, cashing in things, but actually being detrimental for the industry because these things take away value from the industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I used to think that way until I learned more about marketing and sales. So one thing that I like to challenge you on is uh, we can look at sales of being the evil people in this, but I think the problem is deeper than that. I think the problem lies in the fact that um, the the standard of proof in software development is my opinion, is not a scientific study, is not. It's like I tried something, it worked for me, it didn't work for me, so I believe it's good or I believe it's bad, and that's where it ends. And I think this is one of the reasons we get the hypes, because in if you take more established domains, you rarely have those kinds of hypes you have in software development. And I don't think it's a function of sales because they want to sell in those domains as well. But in our domain, it's more like we don't have, as an industry, we don't have the response to the hype by saying, oh, that's stupid, that's BS. That we
Yes,
don't.
but can you really respond to the hype when the industry is dominated by 3 or 4 players? Yeah, they make the good and the bad. So it's really difficult to escape this pattern, in my opinion, until we we get together and, as an industry, realize that there are things that work and that it's a matter of mindset at the end of the day, right? Because in the teams that have a high maturity, the hype don't even coming, right? We treat every hype as a joke, as it has been in the last 20 years, right? That's a mature team when you see that, right? But that mature team is a team that has a strong mindset about humility, about taking knowledge seriously, taking sharing knowledge seriously, that are intellectual honest about doing things well. And, that is, I think, the big thing that miss in our industry. If you have teams like that, and you find teams like that, the hype doesn't matter, right? They can push as much as they want. People, okay, let's evaluate this. Oh, look at this. It's crap. Look what they say. It doesn't even work. And you throw it away, and that's it, right? That's how a mature team behave. The problem is that mature team are a minority. right? And mature organizations are even more rare. And so, if many organizations, it's not even a matter of the developer. There is somebody at the top that decide what's the tool to use, and then drop it down to the devs. This is it. You make it work, right? I've seen it recently, last year, right? The integration chef of integration office. What's that? It's the one that decides who's the technical part without even ask to the tech team. what what is that? If you organize a company like that, you will always have problem with any integration, right? So yeah, it's a problem way bigger than just the development industry, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think that also as developers, perhaps one of the reasons this happens, because I keep thinking about why we keep falling to these fads. The last one I think was microservices, which was the idea of microservices is sound and it works, but it's not every company is Facebook, not every company is Netflix, not every product is that kind of product. Um, but we ended up with taking this concept that was a hype and then over applying it and then figuring out, oh, perhaps we've gone too far, which was for any observer in the beginning, it was obvious that if you read the books, if you went through the use cases and so on, it was obvious that it doesn't work for every situation. It doesn't mean just writing very small services and so on. Much more things are involved there. But it seems there's a lot of young developers who are very interested in the latest, in the newest, and this seems to be also a function.
Oh yeah. If you realize that it's what's the anniversary of the Agile Manifesto recently? What is 20 years?
Mhm.
And these things are still not in university program, right? So of course the kids come out and you want to see the technologies because that's what the brand of, right? The brands put money, advertise technologies, hypes. Why microservices is good? Oh wow, well you need the cloud for the microservice. So it's everything has a commercial attachment behind the scene. And if the money are there, that's where they fuel the advertisement. Then they get into the mind of these young developers, right? Of course, if you are mature, that is completely waste of money for them because you don't care. If you are young, you don't know the industry, you have a completely biased idea of this magic world. Instead, when you enter that world, you realize it is not magic at all. It's even worse. I want to go back study after a while.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the trips. I think that you get to learn one technology, for example, I don't know, the latest JavaScript UI framework or whatever that
Yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
and then
Good.
after 10 years you realize, oh, so there's another one of those, or there's when in fact
Even 2 or 3 years.
yeah, when in fact if you learn the fundamentals, those are there for life. Yeah.
Absolutely. But the problem is that there's no university that teach the fundamental.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just algorithm, memory, architecture of operating systems, right? It's really good stuff. It's really good to know. My exam of programming was a charade. Right? It was done in module 3. And it was just about implementing a thing. I basically did it without even study. I tried the exam 2 or 3 times, and I've learned the language trying the exam. And the third time, I was able to push something that was good enough to pass the exam. Right? My design was horrible. Right? They didn't even teach how You do the design. They teach, module 3 work like this. This is a type, and blah blah blah. I finish university and I have this deep feeling that I didn't know anything about software design. Nothing, I didn't, right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, I feel you. I felt the same. I used to read the introduction to all the uh, software books I could get my hands on, and the introduction was usually something about object-oriented development, and I could never get a feeling of it until probably I got a good feeling of it 10 years ago. So much,
Yeah,
much later. Yeah.
yeah.
So, when did you first heard about the software craft movement and communities, and did it help you in?
I was working for a company called Seven Digital here in London. It was quite famous in the area as a real agile shop. We did acceptance test driven development there in a much more relaxed way than the environment that we were talking before. And from the clean code, test driven point of view, we were doing a very good job. And actually, we have a pipeline, continuous integration, continuous delivery. That was a very, very good place to work. And that's where, the great thing, and that's what I will talk also about my talk, is when you are able to create a sense of community inside the organization, right? And since I believe that learning is an activity which is best done together, it's a very good collaborative activity. And I believe also that software development is a learning activity. You have so much advantage when you do it in group, when you create spaces inside the organization where people can get together, share ideas, share knowledge, and share things. So inside that groups, there was a lot of talking about, hey, look, there's the software craft machine movement, right? And actually, if you go look at the manifest of the software craftsmanship. I think I signed it in 2012. So at that point in time, I was like, yes, it's true. Agile didn't really solve the problems. A lot of ceremonies, but craft quality. And I agree a lot with the idea of the software craftsmanship manifest. So that time I signed it, and I always kept quite in touch with this.
All right. So you joined some of the communities in London,
Yes, yes.
because I'm
I
curious.
joined also London Software Craftsmanship community. Let's say that I've been years I was more active, years I was less active, depending on the kind of work I was doing. But to me, the software craftsmanship movement is the one that kept the focus on quality when almost no one else was doing it anymore.
Hmm. All right. And then I know that you co-authored a book on Agile, on technical practices.
Yes.
And that is quite interesting. So how did you get into writing the book? What made you write the book?
This is a nice story. I was working at Codurance at that time, and actually Pedro was someone that did my interview there. My interview there was quite a show as well, because I basically went there to do an interview to meet Sandro Mancuso, right? Because I never met him before. And so after I talked to a meetup of the software craftsmanship community, David Hall came and was like, hey, why don't you join us? Why don't you come for an interview? And so I was like, okay, I come, but only if I can do an interview with Sandro because I want to meet him, right? Because I read his book. And so I went there to do this interview with Sandro. And basically, they prepared the projector, the table in the middle of the company. And I did pairing interview with Sandro, with the audience, all the company around to watch the interview, right? So level of difficulty very high. And then the interview, the chat was with Pedro, Alessandro Di Gioia, the other co-author of the book, and Sandro and somebody else. So after I joined, I spent a lot of time with Pedro, and he was actually preparing the apprentice program, a program to take anyone and teach them a good thing in a very short period of time in order to quickly make him way better than the average developer. And he had this pile of paper. He had a big Word document with a lot of stuff there. And so I started to help him reorganize it, start to add new things, and we started to collaborate really well. And that day I was there, I was like, Pedro, but you have a great collection of stuff here. It might come out a very good book. And so he said to me, heck, is yeah, I'm trying to write a book out of this stuff. Would you like to write it with me? And I was like, let me say, yes. And that's how it is born. So we started to plan the book in that side and start to think. I like to do everything outside in, so I was like, okay, let's plan the book. Let's understand what we want to talk about, from where to where, how to set it up. And after a while, we realized that we are too similar, and so we were me and Pedro agreed too much on things, right? And when you agree too much, you tend to be biased. So we were like, we need somebody that is different and can help us to counterbalance ourselves. And so we got Alex involved, Alessandro Di Gioia. And Alessandro Di Gioia was the one that helped a lot to finalize the job in something that have all the value now. So it is born a little bit like that.
Yeah, and I looked at the table of contents, and it's obvious that it contains a lot of the core principles and the core techniques. It's very, very interesting. I like that it mentions connaissance. This is I think one of the hardest concepts in software design and not explained enough. How did you get into understanding connaissance?
Well, I'm not sure it's the hardest concept, because once you grasp it, it's actually more straightforward than anything else. I think I think the way I got in touch with connaissance was talking to Pedro, right? I was like, he was like, oh, have you heard about this? I was like, no, I never seen this before, right? And so I started to be interested and read it. I was like, wow, this is actually something very interesting, right? Because there's many times, for example, you go in a team and see a timeout everywhere, right? Message timeout, wait, that the message, all right. It's really bad. It feels really bad, right? When you see those stuff. But yeah, and say why it is bad, right? Yeah, it just feel bad. There's not a way you can say because these it's just instead with connection it is bad. Instead with connections of timing. I look at here. So at that point, the defensive argument is true, right? So wow, it's proved that it is bad, right? But the idea of connaissance for me is this taxonomy that basically enclose any kind of problem of coupling, which is not only inside the code base but also outside. Right? And that is the great thing, because the concept of time, for example, it's a concept that exists, is there, you can couple to it. And if you couple to that, you have a really bad couple because you are not in control of the time, right? And so all these kind of things don't find a way to be expressed in terms of coupling and cohesion or solid principles or other thing, right? I am a little bit sad when Kent Beck say, there is already a name for that concept, is the concept of coupling. Instead, I tend to agree a lot with Jimmy Wayridge, which I want to remember here. I basically learned about connaissance looking at the talk of Jimmy Wayridge because they are amazing. I suggest you to watch them. If you haven't seen it, it's just fantastic. Cool. One title of a talk is the Grand Unified Theory of Software Development. Right? Maybe it's a little bit too pretentious as a title. I'm not sure it's true, but it is definitely true that it is a wider concept that includes a lot of aspects difficult to understand otherwise. And in effect, I have to say we added one type of connaissance in our book. Actually, I have here the original book where they talk about connaissance, but we felt we have to add one type of connaissance, which is, we call it connaissance of manual task, which is when you couple not only with time or execution order, when you couple with something outside the code base that you have to do if you do something the code base anytime. For example, the building script. I was in a team that every time they added a new event in the system, they had to go and modify the building script. Right? I'm like, it's crazy, right? You don't like yourself in that way. And that is, we call it connaissance of manual tasks. And we put it at the top because we think that is the worst kind of connaissance. And actually, there are many things that are so coupled with this kind of thing that they spend all the time fixing bill, fixing script, fixing thing, making things work, and not thinking about the design of their code. Right?
Well, connaissance with a specific person, only that person can,
oh,
can
yeah,
do that
yeah,
task.
yeah, I've seen that as well. That's the developer that is right cryptic code, right? And he put a connection on himself, right? If you want to see touch this code, you have to talk to me, right? That's how they used to secure their job, developers once upon a time. And then we have to fix their legacy code.
Yeah. But it is worth mentioning that you always have a minimum level of connaissance. You cannot live without a minimum level of connaissance.
Connaissance, what I explained, connaissance is the building blocks of our code. It's the type of connaissance that matters. Because connaissance of name and connaissance of type is the good kind of connaissance. It is what we use all the time in our code. The problem is that if we don't just use those kind of connaissance, we add, without even realizing it, some kind of connaissance that are hidden. And so if they are hidden, the developers that read the code cannot grasp it, because you cannot know that you need to change the build script if you add a new event. Where is it written? If you don't know it, it's a legend, right? You discover when you go in the integration environment that it breaks. Oh, wow, it broke it. I break what's in my machine, right? It's these, the problem of connaissance is that it hides the expressivity on the pieces of connaissance you put. So if it's not of name and type, it is something that goes in the legend and it's really hard to find out once you read the code after a while.
Okay, and going back to the book, I'm looking uh, at the table of contents, and one of the chapters is outside in development. This is, I think, a fundamental change for many programmers who are used to start by thinking about algorithms or the database schema or um, tell us more about it.
Well, it is true, and for me, I have to be honest, and for me, it wasn't the most crazy change that because I naturally think outside in. That's one of my peculiarities, and that made me. I was already doing outside in even without knowing the technique, right? Because I logically I start with the flow of the information. So start with the customer, then I go down, and that's how I always did things. It works so well. So for me was it's the question is why people don't do like that. That's my question. But to be honest, the people that start to that try to do that way, it is like wishful programming. When you start to do that way, you never go back. Right? Especially when you do it in an approach structure where you are working really well with the business team and have the good requirements you can automate, and then it resolves the agony in such a way that you never change that anymore because it's the that speculative programming like maybe we need maybe it kills it by nature, right? You don't do that anymore. You just do what is needed to solve that story, and that is perhaps the most effective thing in big teams about. And that is yes, for some maybe the mindset is difficult, but because not because they don't understand it, but because I think they like more to engineer a class in the internal, right? And then that's what they like, that's what they want to do. And this is a lot about maturity, right? Because everyone, most of the people that do this job did it because they like. So they think that this is the space where you can always do what you like. Instead, it is a profession, and you have to do what is important for the organization in that moment in time, not what you like. And that boils down a lot with the maturity of the developer.
One common challenge that I hear to these techniques that we know and we use and we like, you and me and many of the people that I invite on this channel is, well, that works, but only on small projects. It doesn't work on large projects. It doesn't work when you have huge code bases, when you have a lot of teams, when you have, I don't know, years of development, when the build times are very high, and so on.
Right. Yes, of course. If the world fall down, it's not gonna work, right? These are a lot of excuses, in my opinion. I we actually the chapter of the book titled "The Story of Team C" actually tell a story about something or like that. We were in a big company, in a big team, and at a certain point, they realized the project wasn't going very well. So they start to hire expert of XP and Agile technique. That's when they hire me, and that's where I met my friend Eldon I was talking before. And we were 60 people over there. And when I joined the team, I was like, okay, they were doing the retrospective, so I was like, let me facilitate the retrospective of the team. So that gave me a lot of insights, right? When you just join a team, the best thing is to listen to the retrospective, so you can have an idea of what's the situation. So I was running the retrospective of the team where Eldon was, and basically everybody would say, "Ah, it's fine, it's okay." And Eldon was like, "No, this is not because we should do the. This is we should do we have a problem that the build is always broken." It basically overwhelmed the board of problems, right? So I remember in my mind I was like, or this guy is the typical troublemaker, or he is right and they are in a deep problem. And the truth is that he was very right, and we had a big problem as far as they weren't. This project was already 2 years on, and they haven't shipped anything to production yet. And so you can imagine, at a certain point, the management flagged the project red. And they say, okay, if by the end of the year the situation is this, next year we cut the budget. And so everybody was, the web manager was basically like if the project was already cut. It was already gone. And so Eldo and me, in a break, we were like, actually, I went to Eldo. I was like, but listen, Eldo, there is still a piece of backlog there, which actually was upstream of what they were doing. So, in my opinion, it should have been done first. Instead, it was still there. And I was like, why don't we ask the web manager to pick up that piece of backlog ourselves? Just you and me. If we start to work to that without all the mess of this thing and focus, I'm sure in 3 months we are able to ship something. So he looked at me, you're a genius, and just dropped the conversation there, went inside and started to talk with the web manager, right? So after a few hours, I went out from the meeting, and he was like, we have a team. We can also hire 2 developers. Right? So basically, I knew somebody really good that was looking for work. He knew somebody as well. So 2 seconds, we hired them. And in a week, we organize a new team with a new backlog, new people. We pick a tester and we pick a business analyst from the main team. We pick the people that were more open to try new things, right? The tester was kind of like, but we work in a different way. You are gonna write a test. Yeah. You write test in the code. What? Oh, I never touched code in my life. Are you sure it's a good idea? Don't worry, we teach you. And so the developer, the tester started, right? And so we shared the task. Eldon started to build a working skeleton and organize all the dependency we have with the architectural nightmare. And I start to work with the tester and the business analyst to make them learn how to write acceptance criteria. And in the beginning, it was difficult because they were used to other things. But the tester was really good because he has this testing mindset. And the business analyst could go and ask where we don't understand the backlog. And so they started to do these things. We started to put together a little lightweight framework to quickly write the specification. In 2 weeks' time, we didn't even have to sit with them. They were just working together in pair, writing more acceptance criteria that us could tackle and develop. And actually, after a while, when you write criteria, after a while they repeat themselves. They are just a small variation, right? And so sometimes the tester could even write a test that compile. It was, look, it compiles. Look. So I was joking. I was like, next job, you can be developer, not tester, right? And that was a big company, a big financial company. The project was running 6 million per year. But we did a ATDD. By the end of the year, we developed more stuff. We put more stuff in production. the whole team of 60 people 2 years before. And the year after, they green flagged the project and it lasted for another year. So, yeah, you can do that if you want. But we could do it in that environment because they were facing the emergency of getting the project killed. Because we told them many times how things should have been done. But no one cared about what we said until they had the need and they saw that they will die if they don't try something different. Of course, the year after, there was no one that said we should do something different. The year after, we became the technical authority of all the company. There was no doubt about that. But the 2 years before, where they throw away money to basically do a big ball of mud, those are gone. It's a matter of mindset. It's the problem in this organization is there is too much command and control. Our job cannot work with command and control. That is the problem. If there is command and control, you will have a mediocre engineering team. For how good the people inside they are, they will have so many constraints that they cannot do a good job.
Yeah, I've noticed this again and again, and one of the stories I have is with a large telecom company, which so they were trying to do agile, but their teams were 7 layers of people away from customers. So you could never talk directly to customers. You could go through like 7 layers of people. And they kept saying, no, we cannot reorganize, they cannot talk to customers and so on. And then at some point, big problem, some devices fail, and it was really bad because they had to pay a daily fee for every day when those devices were not working. And suddenly they realized they can do agile. They formed a cross-functional team, they sent it on the ground, and they could speak directly to the customers, and they were doing daily meetings, and they kept everybody informed about the progress and about the impediments and so on. And I was like, you know how to do this. It's just that you only do it in a crisis. You never do it when it's...
Exactly, because that's the nature of those organizations. Those organizations are emergency-driven management, which means change only if you need to, otherwise let things as they are. That's how this company works. So yeah, you think, oh, need to work completely different. Are we dying? No, then shut up. Hey, if we are dying, you say we can change. Let's change before we die, right? That's how it works. That's how it works.
Yeah, and we see the same with like legacy code. If you can push some features from time to production on an existing code base, no matter how bad it is, then okay, it's fine. But when the cost of adding a new feature goes very high, they suddenly realize, oh, perhaps we need to change this code or rewrite it, but by then it's usually very late because the cost of recovery is, yeah. So I know you are also interested in technical excellence, technical leadership. And how does technical leadership fit in this world of XP and TDD and other things?
I don't know what you mean for technical leadership. In my way to see it, leadership it is something that emerges from the field, right? And that's what managers don't understand. It's not because you give a label or a title to somebody and that makes a leader, right? It's actually the opposite. It's what people think about you that makes you a leader or not. Is if people listen to you when you talk, or if they laugh behind the back, right? And to me, leadership is about having a clear and transparent idea of what are the skills of the people in a team, right? And so, based on this transparency, we can understand who is more fit to drive different kind of things based on the context, right? Maybe I am more experienced in something, and then I am going to set the way because that's how we can be more effective, right? But in something else, I don't know. Somebody else can know much more, and then he has to be the one that set the way because that's the the that's the way, the self-organizing way that give us more probability to succeed, right? It's all a matter of probability. So if we are open about what we know and what we don't know, we can actually put this into practice. And then at the end of these parts together, everybody will be much more skilled in everything. Because when you work with somebody really skilled, you learn by osmosis, right? There's nothing like working with a really great developer to learn the skills, right? I remember when I worked with the first architect in my first job, right? I I was learning Java at that time. So he gave me a test to do. He was okay. Now you do a program, you learn ODBC, you learn swings, you learn servlets, you learn JSP, and then you do a program that loads something from the database, can change it and save it back. If you're able to do it in a week, you are very good. So I was, oh, fine. Now I show him. In 3 days, it was done. On Wednesday, I went to him. I was like, look, it's done. It works. So he tries out. Nice. Yes, it works. Well done. Now let's see the code. Rich, look at the code. Yeah. One file with 27,000 line of code. And look at me. Huh? You see this? This is crap. I was like, and so he started saying, it is crap because it's not enough to make it work. We need to separate the concept. See, this is the database. It goes in this way. It has its own layer. Right? It start to talk about layer architecture. It start to separation of concepts. It start to talk about things that opened my eyes. I went, wow, that is a good design. That's, yeah, working with him was fantastic. I was learning all these kind of things. I've learned more with him in my first job than in 5 years at uni about software design, right? It's this kind of experience that we should try to put into practice in every team. But you can do this experience only if there is honesty about what you know and what you don't know. And then the leadership, it's naturally, it emerges, right? Because if we are open about this, then it's a group that say, well, that he is the one that know that, right? And so it's just something that to me should be natural and happen without labels and job titles.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Job titles and labels are not necessary, and usually what we mean, and the difference between leaders and managers is that managers have a title, and leaders are, whether they have a title or not, they are just recognized by a group or by a number of people. However, one thing that I think about is systems that emerge, actually, the emergent properties of systems can go into various directions, right? I mean, you can have an emergent property of a development system which says if users report our bugs, then it's good enough. Right? But we don't necessarily like that as.
It depends. To me, what you said before is the biggest problem of all, right? The 7 layer between customer and development team, or between stakeholder and development team, or even between stakeholder and code shipped, right? If you have the order for the business analyst and the review of the requirements, and then the testers, and then another, and then another, and then another. Yeah, every time communication go from a team to another team, you lose a lot. And this is math. This is the entropy in communication system of Claude Channel. It explained that clearly. So the only way to be effective is to have a cross-functional team that speak with the stakeholder and deliver to the customer and close the feedback. There must be one cross-functional team able to take the ball from A to B without handover. And I will show this also in the talk. And this is a thing that happen also in the mining, right? The term socio-technical system is born analyzing what happened in the mining in UK in the first half of last century. So it's almost a century ago, but we learn nothing from there, right? And so we pass the jobs from a team to another team many times. We basically ship to the customer something else, and then the customer is not happy for some reason that when we get reported back, they are not the reason that the customer said. It's like the Chinese whispering game, right? That you whisper something and hear somebody, and at the end of the line, it's completely another thing. It's the same principle.
Right. So you mentioned the token. Just to clarify for the audience, Marco will give a talk at the ITECAN conference, which is called Soulful Socio-Technical Architecture, and that's it sounds very, very interesting. So we won't go into more details about it because you can see it at the conference. I feel like we could go on for hours, but we are getting close to an end.
I need a beer.
I like to end with a number of questions that we introduced a few weeks ago. So, first question: what book did you like and would recommend?
Book or books? Because I have many.
You can pick more, but yeah.
Okay, let me do a quick choice. Okay. Let's these are for sure. And of course, these one. And okay, I think 4 books are enough. So, of course, if we talk about technical practices, it's what it's this one, but it's our book, so that's biased. And then I would like to go a little bit more into organization and management because I think, at least in our community, the technical problem we have a good idea how to solve, right? At least it's not a mystery anymore. So I would like to suggest something a little bit more organizational. One is the 5 Dysfunction of a Team of Patrick Lencioni, which is a book that explains why trust is fundamental. Mm-hmm. Without trust, we go nowhere, and that's a problem in many organizations. They don't trust anyone, and so without trust, what happens is that they form an artificial, he calls it an artificial harmony, right? When everybody seems happy and nice, but in reality, it's just a way to avoid problems. And when you avoid problems for a long time, when they strike back, they are even more damaging. Another nice book is from John Saddle, Beyond Command and Control. I think it's a lovely book. about is a systems thinking methodology to and they propose an alternative from command and control management, which I think has done a lot of damage to our industry. And this is perhaps the best book from Russell Ackoff, Idealized Design. This is another great system thinker, and idealized design is a concept very, very dear to Ackoff, and I think it's a very, very important thing. The idea is that if you have to build something with a lot of constraints, would you have an idea of how you would build it if you had no constraint at all? How is that idea in your mind? Do you have a clear idea of that? Because if you don't have a clear idea of how you will make it without constraints, how can you take the best choices when you are in an environment that even have the constraints, right? And we see it every day, right? Everybody wants to have their opinion, but are you able to do this? If you were alone with a clean sheet, would you be able to do it? Because if that's not the case, there is a limit in the value of your opinion in an environment full of constraints. And that book goes a lot into this. It's very, very interesting.
Okay. Second question, what book you didn't like and would not recommend?
Oh, that's unfair. I don't know.
It's okay to have none.
No, I don't think I can answer because I tend to forget many things. Actually, my memory is not really good, and I am really lucky because by nature I tend to remember only good things. The bad things just forget, and so the bad book I forgot.
That's cool. What topic do you think is not discussed enough in the industry or in the community?
System thinking.
Okay, yeah, I think that's true. What topic do you think, please?
And philosophy, which they are connected.
What topic do you think is discussed too much in the industry or community?
Microservices.
Yeah, that was the latest in a series of fashion-driven.
Let's say we can have AI, data science, what was I don't know, and there are a few others, right?
More personal question. What would be your ultimate career achievement? Something that if you did, you would say, I can retire now. Not necessarily because you have the money, but because you feel like you've done it.
Well, to be honest, it was writing a book, so I could already retire for that. But I think I don't really think in this way. I think I have of my life, I have a master plan, and then I have some milestones that I want to achieve, and I just try to don't put myself too much pressure and go with the flow. I wanted to write a book since I was 17, right? And it took almost 30 years to write it, right? But when it's right, I believe in karma. I believe that if you focus your energies toward what you want to achieve, sooner or later you achieve it. So I just try to be honest with myself, go with the flow, do the best that I can of the little objective that I have in my time, and then the big goals will come clear during that time. For example, the book came like that. I knew I wanted to write a book, but never had the chance. So when that happened with Pedro, for me, it was like the things that comes in the right time, but also because I knew inside myself I wanted to do it. So it was the right moment. I think life give you the right opportunity at the right time if you are coherent with this idea of going with the flow, right? And so the book is written, and now we founded Eiffel Academy, a company that wants to help technical leader to promote a culture of excellence through technical training. And we have several customers already. Our courses are fantastic. The people love it. They are actually, they told us they are addictive. When people do a lesson, just want to do all the course, they want more and more. So for me, that's an amazing achievement per se. I am really happy to have people that want to learn more, to have them in that path, and to actually have fun with them in the process. That's what is symmathecist, right? Learning together, and I think that is a fantastic job. I love it every day. So my goal is to get Icon Academy bigger and bigger and help more and more developers so that one day our legacy code at least will have tests.
Okay. Last question. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
Of myself.
Yes.
Oh. Uh, I'm pretty proud of my life. I would say be yourself. Be
Cool.
yourself.
Okay. Before you close, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience that we haven't talked about?
Not really. I just want to thank you and the Mosaic Work team to invite me to the conference. It's very exciting, and I'm preparing it now. I am digging a lot of books. I have a pile of books around here. I am digesting this break for the talk, and I hope I can finish in time.
Well, so I learned something about writing books is that a book is never finished. You just need to cut it off at some point to cut the editing off. And I feel the same is with talks. So
Yeah. It's a quote at the end of our book. We have it here. Uh, Pedro wanted to put it. Say the story never ends. It's just where you put the end, right?
yeah.
So that's I don't find it. Well, yeah. But the thing is that when I do the talks, I'm a little bit like a Hollywood movie. I write the script first. I write the story. So that is the hardest part because I keep changing my mind. That's the thing. At certain point, I need to close and then start to do the infographics.
Yeah, I am very well aware of that cycle. Yes. Uh, Marco, where can people find you?
But I am on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter. But let's say that more LinkedIn than Twitter recently. And you can find me in our website, alcor.academy. It's the website where we do our training program. And you can, if you want to have a Zoom call with me, you can go in the website and click contact us and book an appointment in our automatic appointment scheduler.
Right. This has been an absolute pleasure and a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Marco, for agreeing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me too.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. We are coming with more conversations, more interesting people to share about their lives as software developers and how they got into software development and how they adopted various practices that we talk about. Um, if you enjoyed this, we need to pay our dues to the YouTube algorithm. So please like, share, subscribe, tell other people, comment, because this is how more and more people will find out about this conversation and hopefully learn something so that we can all advance as a group, as a community, as an industry. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Have a great time, and until next time, remember to think, design, and work smart.